Imagine you're standing in a narrow hallway at school with 300 kids from your team. At the other end of the hallway is a crowd so huge it fills an entire city stadium. And they're marching toward you. Sounds impossible to survive, right? Well, something very close to that really happened over 2,500 years ago. And by the end of this story, you're going to understand the clever trick that helped 300 Spartans hold back one of the biggest armies in the world and why losing the battle actually helped them win the war. Let's travel back to 480 BC. There was once a powerful king named Xerxes. He ruled Persia, the largest empire on earth at the time. His empire stretched across many lands from parts of Asia all the way to Egypt. He had treasure, ships, horses, and a massive army. Some ancient writers said his army had 200,000 soldiers or more. Today, historians think it may have been smaller but still incredibly huge compared to the Greeks. And Xerxes wanted to conquer Greece. As his army marched forward, city after city fell. Imagine hearing that the biggest army in the world is coming toward your home. People were scared. The ground shook when the soldiers marched. It must have felt like a never-ending wave rolling closer and closer. But Greece wasn't one single country back then. It was made up of many city-states like Sparta and Athens. These cities didn't always get along. But now they had a common enemy. And standing in Xerxes' path was a Spartan king named Leonidas. Now here's the smart part. Leonidas knew that fighting the Persian army in a wide, open field would be a disaster. That would be like trying to stop a flood in the middle of a beach. The Persians could surround them easily. So instead, he chose a very special place called Thermopylae. Thermopylae was a narrow mountain pass. On one side were tall cliffs. On the other side was the sea. In some places, the path was so tight that only a small group of soldiers could stand shoulder to shoulder. That was the plan. If you can't beat a giant army with numbers, make sure they can't use their numbers. It's like trying to fit 1,000 people through a single doorway. No matter how many are outside, only a few can get through at once. Leonidas brought 300 Spartan soldiers with him. But here's something important, they were not alone. At the beginning, about 7,000 Greek soldiers from different cities stood together at Thermopylae. Still, compared to Xerxes' enormous army, they were heavily outnumbered. Spartans were famous for their training. Boys in Sparta started preparing for soldier life at just 7 years old. They trained hard, learned discipline, and were taught to never give up. They practiced fighting in a tight formation called a phalanx where each soldier's shield protected not just himself, but also the person next to him. Think of it like building a human wall made of shields and teamwork. When the Persian army reached Thermopylae, Xerxes expected an easy victory. He likely thought the Greeks would run away. They didn't. For 2 days, the Persians attacked the narrow pass. Wave after wave of soldiers rushed forward. But because the space was so tight, only the front line could fight. The rest had to wait behind them. The Greek soldiers held their ground. Their shields locked together. Their spears pushed forward. They worked as one unit. The Persians were shocked. Their massive army could not break through. But then, something changed everything. A local Greek man named Ephialtes betrayed the defenders. He showed Xerxes a hidden mountain path that went around the narrow pass. That meant Persian soldiers could sneak behind the Greeks. When Leonidas found out, he understood what it meant. They were about to be surrounded. He made a huge decision. He told most of the Greek soldiers to retreat and save themselves. But he and his 300 Spartans stayed. Around 700 soldiers from a city called Thespae also chose to remain and fight beside them. They knew they probably wouldn't survive. But they stayed anyway. Why? Because their mission was never just to win that battle. Their mission was to delay the Persian army to buy time for the rest of Greece to prepare. On the third day, the Persians attacked from both sides. The fighting was fierce. Spears broke. Swords snapped. The Greeks kept fighting even as they were pushed back. King Leonidas was killed during the battle. The remaining soldiers fought to protect his body. Eventually, they were overwhelmed. It was over. The Persians had won the Battle of Thermopylae. But here's the part many people don't realize. The sacrifice worked. Because of the delay at Thermopylae, the Greek navy had time to prepare for a major sea battle called the Battle of Salamis. There, the Greeks used another narrow space, this time between islands, to trap and defeat much of the Persian fleet. Without ships to supply his army, Xerxes was forced to retreat with many of his soldiers. The following year, the remaining Persian forces in Greece were defeated in another battle called Plataea. So even though the 300 Spartans and their allies lost at Thermopylae, their stand helped save Greece. And that changed history. If Greece had fallen completely, many things we learn about today, like early democracy in Athens, famous philosophers like Socrates and Plato, and great works of art and science, might never have developed the same way. All because a small group chose to stand their ground. So what makes this story so powerful, even today? It's not just about fighting. It's about smart thinking. Leonidas didn't try to match strength with strength. He chose the battlefield carefully. He used the narrow pass as a tool. He understood that teamwork and planning can make a small force incredibly strong. It also teaches us about courage. Courage doesn't always mean you'll win. Sometimes it means doing the right thing even when the odds are against you. The 300 Spartans knew they might not survive. But they stayed to protect their homeland and give others a chance. 300 soldiers stood in a narrow mountain pass and faced one of the largest armies in the world. They lost the battle, but they helped win the war. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't about defeating the giant. It's about holding the line long enough for hope to grow somewhere else. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn how the Greeks used another clever plan to defeat Persia at sea, make sure you check out the next video on the Battle of Salamis, where brains, boats, and bravery changed history once again.